Srimad Bhagavatam, Gruntaraj Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Janmadasya Yata Nivayat Itaratas Charte Suravikyaswarat. Tene Brahma Hidaya Adikavaye Muyanti Yat Surayaha. Tejo Vari Midam Yata Vinimayo Yatra Chisargo Misha. Dhamna Srina Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi. O my Lord Shri Krishna, Son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth, and the primeval cause of all causes, of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations. And he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion, as one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen in fire or land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature, appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations in the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Dharma Pujita Kaitravudra Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam Vedyam Vastavam Atra Vastu Shivadam Tapa Trayon Bhuvanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kim Vaparir Ishwaraha Sadyohidi Avarudyate Tra Kriti Bihi Sususubhistakshanat. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated. This Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion, for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam sukumakad amrita dravya samyutam pipata bhagavatam rasam alayam muhur ahorasika bhuvibhavukaha. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Shinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hidyantaksto Padrani Vinudoti Sudhit Satam. To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures, or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita, is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as a best wishing friend and purifies the devotee who constantly hears about him. Who constantly engages in hearing of him. In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 13, verse number 25. Tasyapi tava deho yam kripanasya jijivisho paraityani chato jirno charaya vasasi iva. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Despite your unwillingness to die and your desire to live even at the cost of honor and prestige, your miserly body will certainly dwindle and deteriorate like an old garment. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The words Kripanasya Jijivisho are significant. There are two classes of men. One is called the Kripana and the other is called the Brahmana. The Kripana, or miserly man, has no estimation of his material body. But the Brahmana has a true estimation of himself and the material body. The Kripana, having a wrong estimation of his material body, wants to enjoy sense gratification with his utmost strength. And even in old age, he wants to become a young man by medical treatment or otherwise. Dhritarashtra is addressed herein as Kripana because without any estimation of his material body, he wants to live at any cost. Vidura is trying to open his eyes to see that he cannot live more than his term and that he must prepare for death. Since death is inevitable, why should he accept such a humiliating position for living? It is better to take the right path, even at the risk of death. Human life is meant for finishing all kinds of miseries of material existence. And life should be so regulated that one can achieve the desired goal. Dhritarashtra, due to his wrong conception of life, had already spoiled 80% of his achieved energy. So it behooved him to utilize the remaining days of his miserly life for the ultimate good. Such a life is called miserly because one cannot properly utilize the assets of the human form of life. Only by good luck does such a miserly man meet a self-realized soul like Vidura, and by his instruction get rid of the nescience of material existence. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So here we are basically talking about Atma Tattva. What is Atma Tattva? It's the truth about the eternal soul. And in Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, 7th verse, Krishna explains to Arjuna, or Arjuna sincerely beseeches Krishna, Kripanya doso pahata swabhava prichami tvam dharma samudha cheta yatshe yakshan nisitam bruhitan me nisisyaste hamsadimam tvam prapanam. Now I am confused about my duty and have lost all composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition, I am asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I am your disciple, and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. So Prabhupada explains, by nature's own way, the complete system of material activities is a source of perplexity for everyone. In every step there is perplexity, and therefore it behooves one to approach a bona fide spiritual master who can give one proper guidance for executing the purpose of life. All Vedic literatures advise us to approach a bona fide spiritual master to get free from the perplexities of life which happen without our desire. They are like a forest fire that somehow blazes without being set by anyone. Similarly, the world situation is such that perplexities of life automatically appear without our wanting such confusion. No one wants fire, yet it takes place, and we become perplexed. The Vedic wisdom therefore advises that in order to solve the perplexities of life and to understand the science of the solution, one must approach a spiritual master who is in the disciplic succession. A person with a bona fide spiritual master is supposed to know everything. One should not, therefore, remain in material perplexities, but should approach a spiritual master. This is the purport of this verse. Who is the man in material perplexities? It is he who does not understand the problems of life. In the Brihad Aranyakya Upanishad 3.8.10, the perplexed man is described as follows. Yava etad aksharam gargi adit avidit vasmal lokat praitisa kripana. He is a miserly man who does not solve the problems of life as a human, and who thus quits the world like the cats and dogs without understanding the science of self-realization. This human form of life is most valuable asset for the living entity who can utilize it for solving the problems of life. And therefore, one who does not utilize this opportunity properly is a miser. On the other hand, there is the Brahmana, or he who is intelligent enough to utilize this body to solve all the problems of life. Ya itad aksharam gargi vidit vasma lokat praiti Brahmana. The Kripanas, or the miserly persons, waste their time in being overly affectionate for family, society, country, etc., in the material conception of life. One is often attached to family life, namely to wife, children, and other members, on the basis of skin disease. The Kripana thinks that he is able to protect his family members from death, or the Kripana thinks that his family or society can save him from the verge of death. Such family attachment can be found even in the lower animals, who take care of children also. Being intelligent, Arjuna can understand that his affection for family members and his wish to protect them from death were the causes of his perplexities. Although he could understand that his duty to fight was awaiting him still on account of miserly weakness, he could not discharge the duties. He is therefore asking Lord Krishna, the Supreme Spiritual Master, to make a definite solution. He offers himself to Krishna as a disciple. He wants to stop friendly talks. Talks between the master and the disciple are serious, and now Arjuna wants to talk very seriously before the recognized spiritual master. Krishna is therefore the original spiritual master of the science of Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna understands the Bhagavad Gita. How Arjuna understands the Bhagavad Gita is stated in the Gita itself. And yet foolish mundane scholars explain that one need not submit to Krishna as a person, but to the unborn within Krishna. There is no difference between Krishna's within and without, and one who has no sense of this understanding is the greatest fool in trying to understand Bhagavad Gita. So who is Krishna Prabhupada referring to? Dr. Radhakrishnan and all others like him. Because Dr. Radhakrishna says, you don't have to surrender to Krishna. You have to surrender to the unborn within Krishna. This is complete nonsense. But yet, they get away with it. Dr. Radhakrishna was president or prime minister or president of India. He was a very prominent man, and he wrote his own commentary on Bhagavad Gita. In fact, I have it. And this statement is in there. So people are getting away with saying all kinds of irresponsible, speculative, nonsense things only because they have PhD or something like that, or a doctor in front of their name. Okay, so Kripana and Brahmana is a very important principle because, as Prabhupada explains, the Kripana, or the miserly person, doesn't use the human form of life to understand Atma Tattva, the truth about the eternal soul and its eternal relationship with Krishna. Rather, as he says, they become too materially affectionate for family and ethnicity, and race, and nation, and so forth. And they're always in perplexities. They're always dealing with very difficult problems. They're not sure which way to go, this way or that way, and they're always in anxiety. So Prabhupada says the human form of life is a most valuable asset for the living entity who can utilize it for solving the problems of life. What are the problems of life? Birth, death, old age, and disease. They're not sociological problems, they're not economic problems, they're not military problems. They are birth, death, old age, and disease. And what do these four things do? They limit the potential of a living entity. And what can release and liberate someone from such limitation? That is Krishna consciousness. A person who is very limited thinks in terms of family, friends, and the neighborhood, just like people have, neighborhood watch and neighborhood councils and so forth, and they're just concerned about their little scope of life. They don't realize at any moment they can die, and all their attachments are naught. They're zero. They have no importance. If you take birth as a dog, what does it mean that you were a king in the previous life? Just like Prabhupada heard from one astrologer that Nehru took birth as a dog in Sweden. Right. So he was such a big guy, but he ends up a dog in Sweden. So the human form of life is a most valuable asset for the living entity who can utilize it for solving the problems of life. Therefore, one who does not utilize this opportunity properly is a miser, a Kripana. On the other hand, there is the Brahmana, or he who is intelligent enough to utilize this body to solve all the problems of life. Yeah, the problems of birth, death, old age, and disease. These are actually not eternal. They're all temporary things, and they're unnecessary. We force ourselves to be subject to them only because of material desires for sense gratification. So Prabhupada says the Kripanas or miserly persons waste their time in being overly affectionate for family, society, country, etc. in the material conception of life. So we see that, like in India, you have people who pay allegiance to the flag of India and chant Vande Mataram. They're worshiping Mother Earth and all kinds of things like that that basically deviate from the real issue of life, and that is to know our relationship with Krishna. In fact, it says, Name vidu Name vidu now let's see. Name vidu suragana prabhavan cha maharshina aham adir hidevanam maharshinam cha sarvasaha. So, Krishna says, neither the hosts of the demigods nor the great sages know my opulence, my origin or opulence. For in every respect, I am the source of the demigods and sages. So, if the demigods don't understand Krishna, and the great sages, there's 7 great sages in the universe, if they don't understand Krishna, what is our chance of understanding Krishna? Almost zero. Therefore, even though one is so qualified like Arjuna, still he needs to go to Krishna and surrender to him and ask him to become his guru, his spiritual master, and to answer his questions and clear away all his doubts and hesitations about life. So, Prabhupada says that, as stated in Brahma Samhita, Lord Krishna is the Supreme Lord. No one is greater than him. He is the cause of all causes. Here, it is also stated by the Lord personally that he is the cause of all the demigods and sages. Even the demigods and great sages cannot understand Krishna. They can understand neither his name nor his personality. So what is the position of the so-called scholars of this tiny planet? So we see, understanding Krishna is not A, B, C, D. It's not X, Y, Z. It's beyond everything in the material world. It's completely transcendental. So one must come to that completely transcendental position to be able to understand Krishna, and that requires training and the mercy of pure devotees. Otherwise, it's impossible to come to that standard. See? Krishna is above the influence of modes and material nature. So to understand Krishna, one must also transcend the influence of the modes of material nature. And that's not an easy thing. We can't figure it out on our own because we're blinded by material attachments. Therefore, we need the help of bona fide spiritual masters, Shiksha and Diksha gurus, to help us transcend, just like it says, Mam Chayovi Bicharina, Bhakti Yogena Sevate. So, one who engages in devotional service and does not fall down under any circumstances. Sagunam samatityaitan brahmabhuyaya kalpate. Such a person transcends the influence of the modes of material nature and comes to the level of Brahman. What is the level of Brahman? That is, Brahmabhuta prasanatma nasochati nakanksati. No more lamentation and no more hankerings or material desires. So all of us are born in this world overcome by the dualities of life and bewildered by our, let's say, animosity toward Krishna. Icha dvesa samutena dvandva mohena bharata sarvabhutani samoham sargayanti parantapa. Prabhupada translates this as, O Scion of Bharata, meaning Arjuna, O conqueror of the foe. And he says, all living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by dualities arisen from desire and hate. So what does this mean, Icha Desha? Icha means desire, and Dvesa means hate. So when we develop a desire to enjoy independent of Krishna, and that is concomitant with having a certain animosity or hatred for Krishna. Why should he be the center of attraction? Why can't I be the center of attraction? So it's based on envy, which evolves into some kind of hatred for the Lord. Then one comes in the material world because they're bewildered by the dualities that have arisen from desire and hate. Now, what does that mean, arisen from desire and hate? Well, as soon as we don't identify ourselves as part and parcel of Krishna, and we begin to identify ourselves as equal or greater enjoyer, then we develop this envy and animosity for Krishna, you see. So, when we become envious and we develop this type of hatred for Krishna, because why should he be the center of everything? Why can't I be the center? Then we become envious of ourselves because we are part and parcel of Krishna. Now this is explained in the Bhagavad Gita also, 16th chapter, 18th verse, Ahankaram balam darpam kamam krodam chasam sritaha mamatma paradahesu pradvisanto vyasuyakaha. Bewildered by false ego, strength, pride, lust, and anger, the demons become envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in their own bodies and in the bodies of others, and blaspheme against the real religion. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, a demoniac person being always against God's supremacy, okay, that's what a demon is. They challenge all the time. They question all the time, why is God supposed to be the supreme person? Does not like to believe in the scriptures. Second symptom. Because they're against God's supremacy, they also are not interested in Vedic scriptures. He is envious of both the scriptures and the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is caused by his so-called prestige and his accumulation of wealth and strength. So we see this Dr. Radhakrishnan. He was president of India after the partition, and he had some wealth, and of course he had tremendous prestige. He was a commentator on Bhagavad Gita, so he was looked up to as some kind of guru or pundit. And all this because of his being against the supremacy of Krishna, and thus he also disregarded the scriptures. So he starts to write things that are against scriptural authority. You don't surrender to Krishna, you surrender to the unborn within Krishna. So he's separating Krishna from his body. But there's no difference between Krishna and his body, you see. So he's going to make hundreds of mistakes due to that envy and due to his disdain for the scriptures and for Krishna. So then it says, this is caused by his so-called prestige and his accumulation of wealth and strength. He does not know that the present life is a preparation for the next life. Not knowing this, he is actually envious of his own self as well as of others, you see. So, what does it mean when you're envious of yourself? You deny yourself to be Krishna conscious. When there's so many ample opportunities to be Krishna conscious, you hold back and you ignore it, being engaged in different types of sense gratificatory pastimes or activities. Not knowing this, that this present life is a preparation for the next life, he is actually envious of his own self as well as of others. He commits violence on other bodies and on his own. He does not care for the supreme control of the personality of Godhead because he has no knowledge, being envious of the scriptures and the supreme personality of Godhead. He puts forward false arguments against the existence of God and denies the scriptural authority. He thinks himself independent and powerful in every action. He thinks that since no one can equal him in strength, power, or wealth, he can act in any way, and no one can stop him. If he has an enemy who might check the advancement of his sensual activities, he makes plans to cut him down by his own power. So Prabhupada also says in the 4th canto, 28th chapter, 53rd verse, when jivas desire to enjoy, they develop the sense of duality and begin to hate the service of the Lord. There it is. So, therefore it says, those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, I perpetually cast into the ocean of material existence and into various demoniac species of life. So, in this verse, Prabhupada says that it clearly indicates that the placing of a particular individual soul in a particular body is the prerogative of the Supreme Will. Now, this counters the Tibetan Book of the Dead, in which it says that a person can control and determine what their next body is. But actually, that is not a fact, because it says here, it's the prerogative of the Supreme Will. The demoniac person may not agree to accept the supremacy of the Lord, and it is a fact that he may act according to his own whims. But his next birth will depend upon the decision of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and not on himself. So you see, there's misrepresentations everywhere. When I was in college, a friend of mine recommended I read the Tibetan Book of the Dead to find out what is the truth about life. And actually, it misleads you. And it counters or it goes against Vedic scriptures. All right. Okay. So, there are a lot of nice points that comes out of this purport. But one interesting point that Prabhupada makes is only by good luck does such a miserly man meet a self-realized soul like Vidura, and by his instructions gets rid of the nescience of material existence. So, because Vidura was insulted and mistreated by Duryodhana, he left the palace. And after the battle of Kurukshetra, he voluntarily, on his own, came back to help his brother Dhritarashtra. Did Dhritarashtra ever stop Vidura from leaving? Did he ever ask Vidura to come back? Answer is a resounding no. He didn't. He was not thinking at all about Vidura. But Vidura was thinking about him. That shows it's not family attachment now. It shows the deep compassion of a pure devotee. Even though his brother is not interested in hearing this message, still Vidura went back dutifully and tried to help his brother understand what is the truth. His brother did not want to understand. Dhritarashtra was not interested in understanding. He was so snug in as long as he could be treated like a king, even though the people treating him like a king were Yudhisthira and the Pandavas, who killed all his sons. Still, and even though he plotted most of his life how to kill the Pandavas, still he was accepting their mercy. And This is a very shameful situation, and he was not interested in something spiritual. He just wanted to perpetuate his material body and material prestige and so forth. So when it says only by good luck, that means that the living entity is not really interested in going back to Godhead. But it's by good luck, meaning the mercy of genuine devotees who go out of their way to awaken the sleeping souls in this world. And they don't. There's no. It's not that the person deserves it. That's why Prabhupada says devotional service is not causal. This means it's not because you did so many sacrifices and so many pilgrimages and you read so many books that you get the mercy of a pure devotee. It is the prerogative of the, let's say, it's the mercy of the pure devotee that creates this good luck. So when it's a strange statement. Only by good luck does such a miserly man meet a self-realized soul like Vidura. It says only by the mercy of Prabhupada that any of us have a chance to become Krishna conscious, because he went way out of his way to come to the Western world and preach Krishna consciousness and train devotees and go through all the, let's say, difficult times trying to establish this movement, to give us this good luck, this great fortune of being Krishna conscious. So we have a debt that we cannot really repay Prabhupada. All we can do is just sincerely follow Krishna consciousness and glorify Prabhupada and Krishna. That's all we can do. We don't deserve this Krishna consciousness. This is only because of the mercy of the pure devotee that we have a chance to be Krishna conscious. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Premanande Hari Bol. Any questions? Yes. Well, you develop some little desire to hear because you're suffering in life. And therefore, you feel that I must find out why I'm suffering. It's like when I think it was Sanatana Goswami, he tells Lord Chaitanya, I'm the lowest of the lowest. He says, Jagai and Madai are much greater than me. Why? Because although they were eating meat and they were taking intoxication and things like that, still they were chastised by the Lord. That's their special mercy that they got, right? Whereas Sanatana Goswami, he was supporting the meat eaters, right? He was working for the Muslim king, and supporting them. So he considered himself lower than Jagai Madai. And that he was not chastised or threatened by Lord Chaitanya to kill him, right? Like Jagai Madai. So he considered that they got more mercy than him. Right? He was a very unfortunate person to be so well situated in material life and honored and have so much wealth. And he considered all that to be very detrimental, more detrimental than what Jagai Madai did. So the quality or the situation that is most helpful for the devotee is to be devastated by material life. To feel as if you have no future, that everything you've done is a failure. And in such a dire situation, you begin to look around, try and find out, why is this happening? Why is this happening to me? And is there any solution to this problem? So therefore, to be like bankrupt, to be rejected by your family and friends, to be in a hopeless situation, it's actually good. You might start asking questions at that point, and trying to seek some help. Whereas Dhritarashtra, he wasn't like that. He was satisfied in the situation he was in, even though it's like eating stool, right? But it's only because Vidura made that special effort to save his brother that he had an opportunity to find out that what he was doing was completely wrong. Otherwise, he would have died like that. Haribol, Srila Prabhupada, yeah. Well, no, our desire is always to be successful in sense gratification. But then things happen, and we become very frustrated. And then we do everything we can to try and correct that situation, but it only gets us more entangled. You see? Just like Dhritarashtra, after everything he did, still he's taking the mercy of the Pandavas, as if nothing happened. I mean, it's so shameful. But he didn't feel any shame. That's how much an illusion he was. That's how much he was overwhelmed by desire to be king and to enjoy royal life. Right? He's willing to basically be swimming around in an ocean of stool, and he doesn't even mind it. I mean, it's unbelievable that a person could accept such a situation like that. But he did.
That's why Vidura is using strong words.
Yeah, very strong. Yes. Yeah, he's not mincing his words at all. He's being very mercifully harsh to wake him up, right? To shake him up. Haribol, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Yeah. What role does? Piety. Well, it helps you. Whenever you're pious, that means you recognize that there's someone greater than you. Therefore, you will offer respect. You will bow down. You will try and listen a little bit, right? So that can be helpful, but it's still not, let's say, enough on its own to liberate you. You have to, like Arjuna, he was in an impossible situation. You see, he has to fight against his own family members, and they're on both sides. So he wins, he loses, he loses, he loses. There's no way he's going to be happy after that. So he's confused. So was Arjuna a pious person? Yes, he was. But still, he refused to follow Krishna's order. But because he was somewhat pious, or because he was, he had respect for Krishna, he was able to surrender and take instructions from him. So an impious person is like Ravana, because he has such enviousness for Lord Ram, he wants to destroy him. So he can't surrender. although he engaged in pious activities. You see, he was doing Vedic yajnas. He knew Vedic philosophy. He could speak to philosophy very nicely. Right? There are episodes where he speaks to philosophy, and you say, "Wow, he's a devotee, right?" Well, he's the son of a brahmana, right? But because of his envy of the Lord, all that piety, everything was naught. It was all zero. In the case of Arjuna, he didn't have any real, let's say, disdain or hatred of Krishna. He was just overwhelmed by his family attachment. But still, he was a good person. So and the reasons he gave why he shouldn't fight, they were good reasons, right? They're just not valid in that particular context. So the fact that he was not envious of Krishna meant that he was willing to accept Krishna as his guru, whereas Ravana would not accept Rama as his guru. Ravana would not accept Rama's mercy. So he had to be killed, right? So piety may help a little bit. It's just like if you have a boil on your hand, let's say, and it's really hurting and it's hot, So you blow a little air from your esophagus and it gives you some slight relief, right? So that piety gives you some slight relief. Will that push you to completely surrender to the Lord? Not necessarily. But it depends how much you're attached to sense gratification. You can be a pious sense gratifier. Right? So it can help if you have no envy of devotees or of Krishna, but it means that you're open to hearing. But if you have envy like Ravana, who was pious in many ways, and Duryodhana, he was a good leader. He was a good, let's say, leader of society, but he had that envy of the Pandavas. So whether it's Krishna or Krishna's devotees, that piety will be undermined. The question is, am I envious of Krishna? If I'm envious of Krishna, I'll be envious of myself, and I'll be envious of others. If I'm a genuinely, let's say, nice person, not maybe a devotee, but a nice person, and I don't have that envy, then I have this ability to listen, to ask questions, to consider things. But if I have that strong envy due to prestige, due to power, I'm not going to listen, even though I might engage in pious activities. Hare Krishna. All glories to Prabhupada.
Could you say a simple sort of,
Huh?
could you say in simple terms?
Yes.
Being pious, being both